We have the absolute honor of being joined by former WWF/E referee for 22 years. You can catch him on Aftermath on Sportsnet every week. And he is also the author of an incredible book called The 3 Count, My Life in Stripes as a WWE Referee. Please welcome to the show, Jimmy Korderas. Jimmy, how are you today?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good considering the social distancing boundaries, but all things considered, I'm good. I feel fortunate that I'm still able to do what I like to do, is ramble on and talk, and you guys are allowing me to do it here today.
Well, we definitely appreciate taking some time out to talk today. You have so many different areas that we can go about and talk about. I want to kind of go touch all over the place, and I want to start right at the beginning. Anybody that listens to our show knows that I am a huge history nerd when it comes to the industry of professional wrestling. How important are the Tunnies in the Toronto area, and how did they get you kind of started into the industry, Jimmy?
Oh my goodness! You can't talk wrestling in Toronto or Ontario without mentioning the Tunnies. Frank Tunney, of course, is the one I remember, from when I was a kid. But I began working for Jack in 1985. I was introduced by a gentleman by the name of Elio Zarlengo, who was, for all intents and purposes, his right hand man. He handled the programs for Maple Leaf Gardens. He took all the pictures of the talent, stuff like that, and then. The story of how we met is in my book. Cheap plug there. I learned something from Mick Foley. He's the one who introduced me to Jack, and right from the get-go, Jack said, "You know what? We'll find something for this guy to do." And I was fortunate enough to get started there. But like you said, the name Tunney and wrestling in Toronto, it's synonymous.
Yeah, and a lot of people only know him as his on-air role as the president of the WWF back in the day, but he was a huge promoter dealing with people like the Sheik. When you were younger, did you go to any of those shows at Maple Leaf Gardens, Jimmy?
Oh my goodness, did I go to shows? I was a regular. It got to the point where I went when I could, and then once I got my driver's license and was able to drive, fortunately I had a father who owned a garage, his own garage, and had access to many used cars. So I got my own car relatively young, 16, an old, 72 Gran Torino. But you know what? So I would go down to Maple Leaf Gardens. They ran shows every 3 weeks, and I would drive down. And part of what fueled my habit was I would go down with my camera and take pictures. And I would come back to the next show. There used to be a film developing place called Direct Film, where you'd double your prints for $1. So what I would do is I would double my prints for $1, and I'd take that second set of prints and I'd take it down and I'd sell them for $2 a picture. And me selling those pictures fueled my wrestling habit. I got to, pay for my ticket, pay for my parking, blah, blah, blah. And I was a regular. I was hooked.
Who were some of your favorites to watch back at those shows?
Oh my goodness. Before I started working, it was incredible. I was a huge fan of tag team wrestling back then. So I was a huge fan of Steamboat and Youngblood.
Oh, nice.
I thought they were incredible. And I distinctly remember the cage match they had at Maple Leaf Gardens against Sergeant Slaughter and Don Kernodle. Was incredible. Just absolutely incredible. So guys like that, of course, you can't talk Toronto wrestling without speaking about the original Sheik, who is just a man. Was in, some memorable moments. Just so many talented wrestlers from back in the day. Now that having been involved in the wrestling business for so long, I look back at people like Leo Burke and maybe didn't appreciate him as much when I was watching as a fan, sitting in the audience. But now when I go back and watch his stuff, I go, man, is he so good?
He had that Barry Windham type of smooth level to him. He's a guy that you see his name all the time in old articles and old results. But yeah, like you said, he doesn't get the admiration, I guess, that he deserves, I guess.
Yeah, and it's weird because and not trying to make it sound like elitist here, but once you've been exposed to the actual talent and you hear and you learn and they ingrain in your head what professional wrestling is. I don't know how to put it in a better way, but how it's supposed to be presented so that people buy into it. Like you say, you start looking at it from a different perspective, and unfortunately, that perspective is stuck in my head. So, as much as I am still a fan, there are certain elements when I watch and I go, "Why did they do that?" You know what I mean? And I can't help myself.
Well, I don't think you're the only person saying that these days, and I want to touch on the current product in a little bit with you as well.
Sure.
So, what were some of your earliest roles in the industry, Jimmy? Was it always your goal to become a referee? Were there other areas that you wanted to try to go down? How did you end up getting in the referee and some of your earlier jobs to start?
Yeah, I see. Again, getting started because, like I said earlier, taking pictures at the thing. I thought maybe that was my aim, as being a photographer at ringside, taking pictures of the guys for the magazine, for the programs, whatever. But I didn't really, think about, oh, maybe I could become a referee or something like that. I just wanted to work in the industry. And it was actually Pat Patterson, after I started working for Jack for a little while, Pat Patterson said to Jack, he says, look, we got the kid here, he's here, and part of my early roles were Maple Leaf Gardens, the Maple Leaf Gardens crew set up the ring. But around Ontario, we set up the ring. You know what I mean? Because Maple Leaf Gardens had their own ring in-house. So, for the garden shows, I would, let's say, go to the airport and pick up talent, like Andre the Giant, Hulk Hogan, which was like, oh my goodness, that didn't move, right? I'm driving Jackson Fleetwood Cadillac up to the airport to pick up these superstars. And then Pat Patterson, like I said, one day just suggests, well, we got the kid here, and he does his stuff. And then he waits around the entire show. Basically, why don't we use him as a referee or something? And then Jack, I remember his exact words to Pat were, yeah, but do you want to smarten the kid up? And Pat says, but he's in the locker room with the boys. It's not like, we're hiding anything from him. You know what I mean? He kind of has an idea of what's going on. Let's teach him to be a ref. And Pat said to me, get a blue shirt, a black bow tie, black pants, and black sneakers. Carry it with you at all times.
So you mentioned a couple of names there, and I want to touch base. Pat Patterson is one of the greatest minds in the wrestling business, especially when it comes to booking and finishes. How influential was he? It sounds like he had a big hand in helping you get in with the Tunnies a little bit more, maybe even in with the WWF.
Yeah, not so much with the Tunnies, but he kind of got me, got the ball rolling to get me into television at TVs. For WWF at the time, and man, you talk about a great mind for the business. But Pat was also, as you know, the business started changing around the Hulk Hogan era. That's when they started to kind of transform into sports entertainment, and Pat was a genius at being able to bridge that gap between old school wrestling and what at that time was new school.
Okay,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And again, not jumping ahead too much forward, I think right now in the industry, we don't have that Pat Patterson. We don't have that Gerald Briscoe, the guys who were there old school who can kind of transition into new school. Pat was the perfect bridge to transform pro wrestling into sports entertainment. He was able to mesh old school and new school, if that makes sense.
No, absolutely, and I guess is that kind of like where the role of the agent kind of comes into play now, like with guys like maybe Arn Anderson and the Dean Malenkos of the world. Do you think they have the ability to maybe take that next step?
They absolutely do. Again, there's some great minds. Arn, I absolutely love Arn. I learned so much from him, getting to work with him in WWE for so many years. And Dean and Tully and everybody. And I don't want to make it sound like I'm railing on AEW. I think there's an issue there with you have some great minds there, but are the young talent listening?
No, absolutely.
Because it seems to me that that they seem to have their mindset on a certain direction, and I don't think they're using all the tools that are available to them down there, including people like Dustin and stuff like that. I think and I hate using the term the inmates are running the asylum, but I think they're not. Uh, I guess, for lack of a better term, I think some guys think they know better what
Mm-hmm.
what the current product should be, and they don't realize. I like using this analogy, and I've used it many times. When the wheel was first invented, it was made of stone, and then it evolved. They made it lighter. They made it out of wood. And then all of a sudden, somebody decided to make it out of rubber, and then it's vulcanized rubber and run flat tires, and the wheel always evolved throughout history. But at the end of the day, the wheel is always round.
True. Very true.
You can't all of a sudden make the wheel rectangle or triangle or something like that and say, see, we could still get. No, it doesn't work. It has to be round.
Well, now that we're on the topic of AEW, I want to kind of maybe just jump ahead a little bit. Then one of the biggest criticisms that we hear about AEW and that I've witnessed as a fan myself is the lack of the rules being enforced. And as a veteran referee like yourself, how do you feel about these referees that are in there now? They're either having a hard time controlling the match or not even trying to control the match and just kind of, like you said, letting the inmates run the asylum. Do you think that hurts their credibility and their product a bit?
To me, I think it does. I mean, there are going to be people out there who say, well, it doesn't matter that much. It's a different presentation. But at the same time, here's a company that came into existence when they first started, said, we're going to bring pro wrestling back. We're going to, not exactly in the terms of we're going to go old school, but we're bringing more pro wrestling back as opposed to sports entertainment. And part of that is, putting credibility on the referees. Yes, I know that the referee is not supposed to be a distraction. He's not supposed to be a character or he's a part of the show, but he's supposed to be invisible until he's supposed to be visible, or he or she, they're not supposed to be characters unless that character develops into something further down the line, something other than a referee. Now, again, I think what's happening here is the talent who are in charge are not utilizing their referees correctly. Like, for example, enforcing certain rules. Like, guys are fighting outside the ring for 30, 40 seconds, and the referees either not counting or out there kind of following them around. Why?
Yeah.
If in another promotion you watch, and I'm not, again, it's not to put them over the other one. I'm saying guys are fighting outside the ring, but the referee is counting. So now they have to find a way to break the count to continue fighting outside the ring. It's easily done. And the way they distract their referees, it to me just seems so lazy and uncreative. It hurts the product. And part of the blame goes to the referees, but also part of the blame goes to the talent, because the referees, for the most part, and I've been a part of this too, you have to listen to what they tell you to do. And if that's what they tell you to do, you do it. But unfortunately, I don't see these referees stopping and saying, hey, wait a second here, this doesn't help the match. And I think they're just, in my opinion, utilizing their referees incorrectly to tell these stories, because the match is supposed to tell a story. I'm rambling here. I'm sorry, guys. The match is supposed to tell a story, a story that makes sense. And if you use your referees incorrectly and they look like buffoons and people nonsense and rules are not being enforced and stuff like that, then why even bother having them? Just have them stand off to this until it's time for the finish.
No, I agree with that 100%. And if you're gonna say, well, we're gonna give a 10 count instead of a 5 count, and you're still in there for 30 seconds, what's the point? Exactly, right? Have you ever been in a situation where you've lost control of a match like that? Is there anything that these referees can be doing to kind of, not like you said, you want to be seen until you're not supposed to be seen, or not? Sorry, you want to be not seen until you're supposed to be seen. Is there anything the referees can do to kind of keep that intact, or are you just kind of at the mercy of the performer at that point?
It's a little bit of both. I mean, like, I like I said, I get it. I feel for the referees who have to deal with this sort of thing and don't feel. Maybe they feel like they can't speak up and say something, or maybe they don't care. I don't know. What the situation is there, but I'm in contact with a bunch of referees, and sometimes we have discussions about this. We're like, what were they thinking at this moment? And again, it goes back to, again, not trying to not trying to rail on these guys because I get they're put in a tough position at times, but even after the fact, you got to go back and maybe talk to these talents and just say, listen, guys, you're killing me out there. And I know the match is not supposed to be about me. It's supposed to be about you guys telling your story, but I'm supposed to be there helping you tell your story in a way that makes sense, in a way that is cohesive. And unfortunately, a lot of these guys figure, you know what, as long as we get all our spots in and we get all this stuff in and we get to the finish, who cares how we get there? That's what it feels like to me sometimes.
No, and it comes across on the product too. And when we're on the topic of talking about the referees, like, everyone, maybe the more casual fan will say, "Oh, it's just the referee, like count your 1, 2, 3s, whatever." But the role of the referee is so important in the match. What kind of responsibilities do you have as being a referee in there, Jimmy?
There's several responsibilities. Obviously, you're in there to play the part of a credible referee who's supposed to be enforcing these rules that supposedly exist in professional wrestling, because it's supposed to be simulated combat sports. And yes, there will be times in the match where a referee makes an error or something like that. It happens in all sports, anyways. Yeah. That's the reality of it. Some of the other duties are to sometimes help communicate between the talent, because the talent can't just sit there and like talk to each other. So sometimes you're communicating messages back and forth. So you're relaying times for the match, because back in the day before we had earpieces, you were getting your time cues from the timekeeper at ringside, so you had to keep an eye on him. But now you're getting them in your ear, so you're passing along information like 4 minutes to go. And sometimes the producer or the agent for the match will say something, hey, tell him to slow down and take his time, or something like this. So you're passing messages from the back to the talent as well. And of course, also safety of the performer as well. If you think that somebody has got their bell rung or something like that, you check on them, and sometimes you have to err on the side of caution. And sometimes the guys and gals might get mad at you for pulling the plug on a match. But if somebody gets their bell rung, man, with all we've learned about concussion protocol and stuff like that nowadays, better to be safe than sorry.
No, absolutely. The safety of the performers. Sorry, I'm really glad that that's being taken a lot more serious now. You're not seeing those headshots anymore, and you guys have the bird's eye view on that. So it's really important for you to communicate that to the back. Is it true, Jimmy, that back in and maybe even to the current day too, that Vince McMahon wants the referees to call it like a shoot, and if they do disqualify a talent, that there's a cash bonus for the referees?
I don't know about the cash bonus thing, but
so that's what you read on the internet, at least, right?
Of course. There have been times where you get performance bonuses, where but I wouldn't call it a cash bonus for rules. Yeah, but Vince would tell everybody, listen, the guys need to also listen to you out there and not treat you like you're non-existent. So he would tell us at times, look, if guys are not listening to you and you're counting out there, count them out. I have your back. So, yeah. So,
awesome. Okay, cool. And we're on the topic of Vince McMahon right now. Obviously, probably the most influential man in the history of professional wrestling. What's it like being around Vince McMahon? Do you have any Vince stories? Did you have a lot of interaction with him? Any good Vince stories?
I don't know. Good Vince stories. I got to see him every week at TV. So, you saw Vince. So instead of, for me, it was like, I don't know, do I call him Vince? Do I not call him Vince? Do I call him Mr. McMahon? I was always like on the fence kind of thing. So I just walk in and see him and say, hey, boss. You know what I mean? But he was easily, when he wasn't busy, because, he's running around doing, Vince stuff all day long.
Yeah.
It was like, hey, boss, you got a second? Can I ask you a question? Sure, pal. What do you need? Like, he was easily approachable. And yes, it's very intimidating going up to him. He has this intimidation factor. And I know a lot of guys, including me, felt a little intimidated walking up to him and talking to him, but at the same time, he was very open and he would listen, and whether he agreed with you or not is a different story, but at least he'd be open to your suggestions.
That's all you can ask for, right? That's how the communication is always the biggest key to succeeding, right? So you use the word boss there, and I want to throw back to a name that you mentioned in your early days in the business, and that's Andre the Giant. You drove him around, you said, a little bit. He was the locker room leader for a period. What's it like being around a guy like Andre the Giant? Is he a Hall of Fame? He's obviously a Hall of Fame performer, but is he all the Hall of Fame bar stories true about him as well?
Oh my goodness. Yeah. He. Let's just put it this way: he could pack it away, and if you were to sit with him, and you never refused a drink from him. If he offered you one, you took it. I mean, like, I felt bad for guys that didn't drink, and him, because he would say, "Hey, boss, have a drink," and you're like, well, "I don't drink alcohol." Oh, come on, just have one. You know what I mean? It's like, well, what do you do? I've had the unfortunate pleasure of um, uh, well, let's put it this way. I was fortunate in that I was not on his bad side. He liked me, which I was very glad for. But that just meant that if I happened to run into him in the adult beverage room, that chances are I wouldn't be walking too well afterwards.
You said you had the pleasure of being liked by him. Did you ever referee any matches where he was in there with somebody he wasn't a big fan
of? Yeah. For some reason, he Warrior, the Ultimate Warrior, kind of rubbed them the wrong way because they used to do this spot all the time, and I love Bobby Heenan used to tell this story all the time. It's tremendous. So they used to do this spot in their matches where Warrior would hit the ropes and he'd run and hit Andre with a clothesline, and Andre would be staggered. He'd hit the ropes again. He hit it like 3 or 4 times, and on the third or fourth one, Andre would stumble backwards and tie himself up in the top rope and the middle rope. Like himself up so that Andre can go to so that Warrior can get a few shots in on him or whatever they were going to do after that. But Warrior, you can't really hurt Andre, but he kept coming in a little snug with those clotheslines. So one day he told him, he says, "Hey, when you hit me with the clotheslines, I will sell for you, brother. You don't have to try and knock my head off." So the next match goes out and he runs, he hits the ropes, bang. Here comes that stiff clothesline. Andre's rocking. Bang, he hits him with the second one. Now he looks over at Bobby and goes, "Watch this." Warrior hits the ropes the third time. As he's coming back, Andre puts up his fist. Just straight on. You can imagine how big that is. And Warrior runs right into it and goes down. And then Andre says to him, "Hit me with another one." So he comes back and he hits him with the clothesline. More appropriate now, less snug. And Andre ties himself up in the ropes and he turns over to Bobby and he just says, "See, the kid's learning."
That's a crash course for learning. Talk about learning on the job, eh?
Oh, yeah. But, like, let me put it this way. He could manhandle pretty much anybody he wanted to, but, he was a gentle giant for the most part.
Oh, that's cool. Andre the Giant is definitely one of the all-time greats. So you're moving along in your career at this point now, kind of where we are in our conversation. Do you have any memories of working your first WrestleMania? I believe it was WrestleMania 4 in Trump Plaza. And is it kind of weird looking at where we are in the world now and seeing that Donald Trump is the president of the United? I don't want to go politically or anything, but you worked with the president of the United States. Like, that's pretty cool.
No, I just do a quick job. Yeah, it was, going back, and it's Trump Plaza, and who would have thought back then that this billionaire real estate guy or whatever the heck he is would end up being president of the United States. But that first WrestleMania was awesome, like being there for it and stuff. But the biggest memory I have from it is knocking myself out during the Intercontinental title match with Honky Tonk Man and Brutus the Barber Beefcake. And contrary to popular opinion, a lot of people thought that Jimmy Hart was the one who knocked me out. And yes, he did swing the megaphone, but unfortunately, I knocked myself out taking the bump.
Oh wow! So you were like legitimately like out unconscious?
Yeah, pretty much. Basically what it was Beefcake had Honky in the sleeper hold. Jimmy jumps up on the apron. I go over to tell him to get down, and as I turn around, he waffles me with a megaphone. So I face planted down to the canvas, but my chin hit the canvas, I guess, in the right spot.
Oh, good.
So after that, it was birds chirping and stuff like that. So
See
I,
that?
I the only thing I remember after that was being in the back, sitting in a chair, and somebody asked me, "You okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, why? What happened?"
I remember I just rewatched that match actually not too long ago, and I remember watching you getting carried to the back and watching your legs kind of dangling, thinking like, wow, like look at him sell that. That's amazing. But I guess that was more of a shoot than a sell, right?
I wish I could take credit for the hell of a sell job there. In essence, it did help in the sense that I'm thinking to myself now, okay, now I'm, yes, in that situation, I rang my own bell. At the same time, makes you think forward to, okay, in the future, maybe this is the way I should be selling something like that. You know what I mean? It's a weird kind of learning experience, for lack of a better term.
You're learning as you go, right?
Always learning. That's the other thing too. You're always learning. Even after 30 plus years of being in this industry, there are always little things you pick up and learn.
Well, and you had such a long run with the WWF. Do you have a favorite time period that you were with them? Because you were kind of with the end of that Hulkamania era there, moving into the new generation, and then the Attitude era, and then I believe the Ruthless Aggression era around that time frame. Is there a time period that kind of sticks out a little bit more? Like, holy, like this is amazing, or was it all kind of just awesome for you?
I'd like to say there's one period that sticks out more, but I think it's once we did the brand split and we became specific to certain brands, like because I was a SmackDown guy, I was a SmackDown ref, and getting that era with the Radicals, with Eddie and the Boys, and stuff like that, and getting to see guys like Cena and The Rock and Stone Cold, that period, I'm special about that time frame and that era. It's incredible. Kurt Angle was exploding back then as well. I mean, like, wow, what a time!
Yeah. That's a who's who in this industry. That's a Mount Rushmore you just named right there. And speaking of a Mount Rushmore name, the Undertaker. I know it's no secret you're a humongous fan of the Undertaker, as we all are. He's one of the greatest of all time. What's it like being around the Undertaker in the ring, just for his entrance and his documentary that just finished up as well? How did you feel all the presentation went with that?
Oh man, you're right. I'm an Undertaker guy, and here, like, what can I add that hadn't been added in the documentary series for those who have seen it? And if you haven't seen it, go out of your way to watch it because it's amazing because you got to see the real person behind the guy you used to see on TV every week, and it's nice. I know some people would say, "Oh, I don't want to see that side of the person," but you get to see that he's a real human being, and here's a guy that, as was said in the documentary, he was our locker room leader, and he wasn't the locker room leader because he said, "Hey, guess what? I'm the guy." He was the locker room leader because he was chosen by everybody else because of the respect that he earned over the years, and the way he handled things. He never, if ever, rarely, raised his voice about anything or anything like that. And he was our guy, that he was our go-to, when you needed anything, hey, what do you think about this? Or there's a situation going on, we don't want management to find out about something going on, in the locker room, but we need to clear up a situation. He was the guy you went to, and he would, like, more often than not, solve any issues.
Is it even able to put into words what it's like to stand in the ring when he's making his entrance?
It's incredible. Just standing, somebody asked me one time, do you ever get, lost in the moment and kind of like forget that you're there to do a job in the ring and stuff like that? Thankfully, it's, during the Undertaker's entrance, you have those moments where you go, wow, this is incredible. Look at this. Look at this spectacle and stuff like that. But you're able to get back to your job when you get into the ring. So, for that few minutes that he's making his entrance.
Yeah, I get goosebumps watching it in the stands, so I can only imagine what it's like to be in the middle of the ring with that. And I guess it's safe to say, would it be safe to say that your career highlight would be the main event of WrestleMania with him and Edge? And what did it feel like to get such an honor to be involved in the main event of the biggest wrestling show of all time?
It was a huge honor, and yes, you'd be right to say that was the highlight of my career. And part of the reason why was I wasn't originally scheduled for that match. It was Edge and Undertaker who requested to have me officiate that match. And,
oh, wow.
A couple of weeks before WrestleMania. I want to say we're in Little Rock, Arkansas, if I remember the town correctly. And, another day of TV and walking in, and Edge comes up and says, "Can I talk to you?" I said, "Yeah." And, went over to him and said, "Come on here," and went over and talked to Taker and said, "What match you got for Mania?" I said, "I got the TLC match." I guess sometimes you get pigeonholed, and I had been doing a lot of those. So I found that match, and he said, "We'll be refereeing our match." I said, "Pardon me?" So, yeah, we want to do our match. And I'm like, okay, it's not up to me. He says, "But Taker looked at me questions. We'll be doing our match." I went, "Okay, whatever you need." And I was both honored and nervous at the same time because now, here they are requesting me for this match, so I better, I don't want to mess it up. You know what I mean? So I put added pressure on myself. What a cool.
That's the ultimate sign of respect when you have somebody, probably the most respected man in the industry. Maybe him and Andre the Giant would be the top two, and to have him come to you and ask you that, what a tremendous honor. And that just goes to show that, your work was respected. That's got to be the ultimate feeling of gratitude, right?
Of course. Like I said, I wasn't in it to be a star. I wasn't in it to be noticed. I wasn't in it. But I was in it because I absolutely loved doing it, and be recognized for doing a good job. That's all I thought about. But I did my job well, and hopefully that's and every once in a while, a pat on the back is nice. It's refreshing to know that they're happy with your work. That's it.
Well, and you had another moment that I thought was really cool, and it was outside of the WWE, and it speaks on this respect topic that we're going with. What are your memories about working with Ring of Honor in Toronto? Because I remember you just came out, you didn't get an introduction from what I remember. You walked out, and you got a huge ovation from the crowd. How much did that mean to you on a personal standpoint?
Oh, my goodness. See, because, coming from the world of WWE, sometimes you have this preconceived notion about the audience. Of course, I watched all wrestling, so I was familiar with the ROH brand and the audience, and got to meet all their guys there, guys that I'd met before, which was cool, and also guys that I got to meet for the first time, and everybody was really, really cool and really respectful, and it was an awesome experience. But when I went out to the ring and I got that ovation and a little bit of a chant there, I'm not going to lie, I got misty, man. It hit close to home. It was like, wow. I talk about the WrestleMania moment, but that one was maybe not quite WrestleMania, but it was up there. It was amazing. It was an incredible feeling, and it felt, I don't know. It was really heartwarming. I felt honored to be a part of that.
Oh, definitely. Well, and then that just shows that you've earned the respect of not only your peers with the Undertaker story, but also the fans as well. Back when you were with the WWF, everybody knew who the referees were. You guys had a different amount of respect. The Tim Whites, Mike Chiodas, Jack Dones. You guys were, Earl Hebner. You guys were all just as known as the wrestlers because I think the respect was there as well with us as fans.
Well, I think partially too is because they worked hard to make the referees credible back then as well. It goes back to what we were talking earlier. You want when you know the referee's name because, hey, that Mike Chioda does a heck of a job. Earl Hebner is one of the best referees out there. Tim Wade is doing a hell of a, when you start thinking that way. But if you start thinking, oh my goodness, did you see referee? And I won't mention any names. Did you see how silly he looked in that thing? Did you see the way he did this or she did that? It's like, I think referees today are getting noticed for the wrong reasons.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you guys actually had some angles that you got to do back in the day too. What was it like being part of the referee strike angle? And you were the referee that crossed the picket line. And we mentioned the name Mike Chioda. Was he mad at you? Did you owe him some money or something? Because it looked like he was laying in those boots pretty stiff on you at Unforgiven there, Jimmy.
Well, I will tell you, I still owe Mike a few receipts from that, but afterwards, I'm like, holy crap! Who? Like, I was covering up. You know what I mean? So I couldn't tell who it was until the next day when I saw the tape, and I went, and I went up and I said, "What's the deal, Mike? Learn how to work." You know what I mean? Anyway, yeah, that was a fun angle to do, and the way that came about was funny because September of '99, I got married and went on my honeymoon. Went to Europe for 2 weeks and came back. So I was off for 2 weeks. I was off for a couple of weeks, and they ran that strike angle while I was away. And you're on your honeymoon. As much as I love this business, I wasn't going to be watching wrestling while I was on my honeymoon, so I didn't realize that the angle was going on. So I get back to TV, and everybody's talking about the strike angle. Ha 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 ha. And I'm like, what? So it gets explained to me, and I run into Hunter in the hallway. And he says, hey, and he used to call me Corduroy. That was his nickname for me. Hey, Corduroy, welcome back. How was the honeymoon? I said, it was great. He says, how does it feel to come back and be on strike? And I'm like, strike? No way. I just got married. I can't afford to go on strike. I need my. He went, ha ha, that's fun. Oh, wait. And then he goes, hey, JR, come here. And then next thing you know, 5 minutes later, they come back. You're not going on strike. And I'm like, what? And they said, no, this is good. This is going to work out. You're going to be the one guy that crosses the picket line with the scab referees. Okay. So what started as a joke ended up becoming part of the storyline.
That's so crazy how the little things like that, and it turned into something that's memorable that we're talking about, how many years later, right?
Yeah, you never know what just shooting the bull sometimes ends up getting people thinking, and you never know where it goes from there.
So I have another name that I want to ask you about. My co-host Mike, who unfortunately couldn't join us today. His favorite wrestler of all time is Rowdy Piper, and he would love to know if you have any great memories of working with Rowdy Piper or just being around Rowdy in general.
You know what? Roddy was awesome. He was such, he was always a fun guy to be with in the back, and he was always upbeat. I know a lot of people probably don't see this in him, and maybe when they did Legends House, you saw a little bit of what he was like. But again, Roddy was cool, and he used to call me Gabe. he wrestlers have nicknames for certain guys, and I had hair back then. It was a little bit curly, and anybody who remembers Gabe Kaplan from Welcome Back, Kotter, he thought my hair looked like his, and at one time I'd grown a mustache, and he says, hey, he started calling me Gabe, and that was it. I was labeled Gabe from then on. But Piper was awesome, dude. He just got it. I mean, like, he knew that you didn't have to do 150 different things to try and get over. Just do a few things very well. And again, it's more about getting your persona and your personality over as opposed to a move over, if that makes sense. Like you look at Stone Cold Steve Austin, I'll use him as an example. Everybody talks about the stunner, which was his finish, which rarely anybody kicked out, if anybody did. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, people were invested in the Stone Cold character. That's what got him over more than the stunner did. The stunner was just like cake. And same with Piper. His character, his persona got people interested. They wanted to see what he was going to do next, and he was awesome.
Well, and it's funny you mention that, because for me, my own memories of Rowdy Piper, I feel like he had an eye poke over more than, these triple corkscrew, plancha, ladder, table bumps that you're seeing nowadays, right? The effectiveness and the way that he placed that, it was perfect.
Yeah, it's not how daredevil you can get. It's how you again, to me, I'm a story guy. Tell me a story. That's it.
Yeah. No, and I think that's like we talked about. Maybe we'll move into the current product a little bit now. I'm like you. I like a story. One of my biggest pet peeves is every October we get Hell in a Cell because it's October, not because the Undertaker and Edge are climaxing to the end of their feud. Do you think that these gimmick matches are kind of just being abused right now and losing a bit of their allure just because the way they're being thrown around?
Yeah, I would agree with that. And perfect example was recently we just had Extreme Rules,
Mm-hmm.
and the matches for Extreme Rules were just basically made because the pay-per-view was Extreme Rules. So they tried to be creative with uh, the eye for an eye match and stuff like that, and swamp matches. And I know it's difficult now without an actual audience there to present wrestling the way you want to present it, because let's face it, the way to gauge whether a wrestler is connecting with an audience is through a live audience. People look at the ratings, and I think they overestimate what the ratings mean in today's wrestling product, because without the audience, it's hurting the product. And because you can't tell who is actually getting over and who's not.
Mm-hmm.
It's you know what I mean? So, and like you said, getting back to what you originally said, having these gimmick pay-per-views, it's like, okay, we have to do something because this pay-per-view is called Extreme Rules. We have to do something because this pay-per-view is called Hell in a Cell or whatever it is, as opposed to, okay, we're going to tell a story and then we're going to build to a match that gets there. It's almost like a little bit backwards.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned something that's really intriguing that I don't think a lot of people are thinking about. Like you said, the biggest judge that you get right away is that reaction from a live audience. And they're taking a couple chances right now. And a guy I kind of want to talk about is Otis a little bit. Kind of a mid card comedy figure for a little while, and now all of a sudden they're strapped the Money in the Bank briefcase on him. But you're not really getting a gauge for how the fans are receiving that because they're not in the building. You can read your online, whatever, and that's not really that credible. But do you think someone like Otis, how do you think he's being presented as the Money in the Bank holder? And do you think that he's being hurt by not having that crowd feedback to see if they're going the right direction with him?
Yeah, he's definitely one of the talents I think that's being hurt by not having a live audience. There's a few of the pretty much everybody you could say. I mean, like again, having some of like in NXT and Raw and SmackDown, where they have some of the students from NXT being out there live making some noise helps. AEW has some of their talents outside making noise helps create an atmosphere, but it's still not the same thing because again, you're not getting that audience feedback, and the audience feedback is what is most important. I mean, you can have people make noise. You can even have canned noise. It's not the same.
No,
because you're not getting a fair gauge of whether that talent is connecting with the audience.
Yeah, and I know a lot of the online community is, very high on AEW. Oh, their product is fresher. Well, I think their setting has a lot to do with why it feels fresher. They have a beautiful outdoor venue compared to the Performance Center, which can get a little redundant at times. It's like, I don't know. I think people are, not that I have a problem with the AEW product. I absolutely love it. I think they do a lot of great things. The addition to a team like FTR, for example, I think is going to do good with helping with the credibility of following the rules. But I think people are a little too hard on the WWE as well for a lot of things. But sometimes their booking isn't perfect either.
No, not. But I will agree with you. There are elements of AEW that I am entertained by, and it's as much as I critique them for certain things. Obviously, the refereeing is one, but one of the other things I critique them on is I like using analogies a lot, like I did with the wheel earlier. Let's say you're writing a story. Like I said, I'm a story guy when it comes to matches and storylines and stuff like that. Imagine writing a chapter in a book, and in the chapter in the book, you have punctuation, you have commas, periods, exclamation points, question marks. You have paragraphs that tell the story with ebbs and flows. I just find a lot of AEW at times is more like one complete run-on sentence that doesn't give guys or the audience time to breathe. Mm-hmm. It's almost, at times it feels like, hey, we can do all these moves, so let's do them. Sometimes you don't need to do, I hate using this analogy, but sometimes less is more. Yep. It's how you present it, how you sell things. I mean, like, how many times a night can you see a Canadian destroyer done in different ways? You know what I mean? It's just,
I know. It's sad that one of the most impressive looking moves of all time, it's just a transitional move now with no meaning to it anymore.
That's the point. And you hit the nail on the head. It's cool to be able to do all these creative, spectacular moves that are, for lack of a better term, a nice fireworks display, but at the end of the day, they don't mean anything.
Now, you used a great analogy there about writing a book, and that's something I guess that you have a little bit of experience at. Tell me what it was like. What's the process like of going back and reliving your life? You talked about your early childhood in your book, your entire career. How fun was it to sit down and put that all to paper, and how satisfied were you with the final product?
It was a process, and thankfully, it was my wife's idea. I give her credit because it was her thought to put pen to paper and start writing this out. The hard part is trying to remember everything, because as you get older, you have to try and unlock certain memories that are way back there and try to remember stories as accurately as possible. But I was happy with the finished product, and I think there's still more out there. And who knows, maybe a part deux is in the works in the future. I don't know. There's definitely a lot more material out there for it. That's for sure.
Well, I'll tell you, you've got a guaranteed sale with me right there, because your first book is absolutely incredible. I couldn't put it down. I finished it in a day. It was a great read, Jimmy.
Thank you so much.
I actually picked up your book. I kind of want to mention a promotion that you do some work with now, Chinlock Wrestling. How much fun are those shows for you to do? And it's for a great cause as well with the charities. How much do you look forward to doing those Chinlock shows every year?
Yeah, I love them. Jan Murphy is a good friend of mine, and I'll do anything for Jan, and it's fun because not only is it good for to get out there and do the charities and that sort of stuff, but also which is the main reason why we do it. It's for the charities, but at the same time, it's kind of cool to see some of the old friends. Like last time I was there, it was like there's Tommy Dreamer and Billy Gunn, and I get to see Vicky Guerrero and all these. You know what I mean? Like it's cool getting to see some old friends that, especially during these circumstances, you don't get to see really anymore. And it's unfortunate that we're going through this pandemic stage, or else we would have had another one this year. But we'll see. Yeah, when things get somewhat back to normal, I'm looking forward to heading out and doing another Chinlock show.
Absolutely, and we'll definitely be talking about that on our show. I know my co-host Mike has a lot of ties with that show as well. I just got a couple more questions for you here before I let you go. You've been very generous with your time. How do you come up with the idea to do your ref and rants on Instagram every day?
Okay, full disclosure, my wife is like my PR person. She's like, why don't here's the thing. I'd be sitting at home and she's not really a wrestling fan, but I'll be watching something, and then something during the night while I'm watching wrestling, I'd be, oh my goodness, what's the matter? Well, they just did this. Why did they do this? She goes, and so she's, after a few of those, she goes, you know what? Why don't you just do a little rant on Instagram or something like that, a minute long, where it's not taking up too much time, because, once you start doing longer rants, people tend to tune out. So, just keep it a minute long and just get your point across and have some fun with it. So then we came up with the idea of wearing a different T-shirt every day, having a cup of coffee or whatever, and the little duck that she painted with the black and white stripes. That's my reffin' duck.
Yeah.
And it just became a thing. And I figured, you know what, Monday to Friday, I'll do that, every day, and just what I'm trying to do is have fun, but be honest at the same time. You know what I mean? I'm giving an honest opinion, but I'm trying to have a little bit of fun with it as well. And I think, unfortunately, during these trying climates, people tend to think that I'm picking on certain people, but it's meant to be a critique. hope that things get better, not to tear down.
Well, that's the online presence as well. Everything has to be negative. No one can just look at the fun in things. Like one of my favorite things to do during Monday Night Raws now is and AEWs is to follow your Twitter. You're very very engaged with people on Twitter, and I can see that you're having fun with these people, and I get a kick out of how worked up some of these people get. Your online presence is very very funny to me, Jimmy. Keep up the good work with that.
Thank you. Again, it's wrestling. Wrestling is supposed to be fun. It's something we all like, right? Or supposedly all like. It shouldn't divide people like it has, but it's almost become as bad as politics now. Everybody has.
Yeah, it's crazy. Why can't we just enjoy it? It's something,
Yeah.
for myself. I've grown up loving it. I have fond memories of my childhood. If I don't like something, I have a fast forward button. I can just move past it to something I like.
You know what? If something's bothering you that much, go to your phone, play a little Candy Crush until it's over, and the next thing you might like.
That's it. So we are moving into the biggest party of the summer now, Jimmy. We're going to be doing a live SummerSlam show on our Instagram. We're going to we do a weekly countdown show. That's our gimmick here. We're counted out with Mike and Tyler. We're going to be doing a top 7 Randy Orton SummerSlam matches live on Instagram for that. Where do you see the SummerSlam card shaping up this year?
Man, it's going to be interesting. I think I know Bully Ray calls it tea leaves. I prefer tarot cards, but my tarot cards are saying it is moving towards Randy Orton and Drew McIntyre for SummerSlam, which is a heck of a matchup. And you know what? I always have been a big fan of Randy Orton's. I always saw that he was a natural, but the stuff he's doing now, currently, to me, he's the best heel in the business right now.
I could not agree more. He is incredible. Some of the work he's doing, and it's weird to say because he's had such a legendary career, but I feel like he gets overlooked so much with all the incredible things he's done. Because he's in there the time periods with the John Cena's and the Edges and Randy Orton's body of work, and right now especially, I think he's the right guy to go in there with McIntyre at SummerSlam.
No, I totally agree. And I talk about styles in the ring. You watch him, his pacing, his registering when he's on offense, his selling when he's on, when he's selling someone else's offense. Everything, it's not overstated, but he's making it work. And in my opinion, his matches should be required viewing at the Performance Center. Not everybody could be as smooth as Randy Orton, but at least everybody can learn something from him. And it's not only his in-ring work; you listen to him talk too. He's doing a hell of a job on the mic as well. So hats off to him because he's had a long career, but right now he's firing on all cylinders.
I think he's doing some of the best work of his career right now. I think he's the right guy for McIntyre, and I wouldn't even have a problem if they wanted to put the belt on him right now, the way he's going. Jimmy, thanks a lot for taking some time out with us today. Before I let you go, I know you're a big football fan, as am I. How's your Tennessee Titans going to do this year?
Oh man, I don't know. I'm just hoping that they could just get some sort of football out there in a safe sort of manner. And you know what? Hey, I will keep my fingers crossed. Unfortunately, I haven't been keeping tabs on lineup right now. But once it gets closer to becoming a reality, I think I'll be checking in more on my Titans.
I'll have to reach out to you around week 8. They're playing my Bengals. Maybe we'll have a friendly wager on something fun over social media on that, Jimmy.
Yeah, it works for me, man. I love it. As long as it's a fun thing. I have to admit, I stopped gambling a long time ago, but fun little things where if it's food involved, I'm in.
There you go. Maybe I'll have to twist your arm if my Bengals can beat you. We'll have to bring you back on the show to do a countdown list with us.
Oh, cool. Yeah, okay. We'll work on that.
All right, perfect. Well, Jimmy, before I let you go, just anything you want to plug, social media, your book, Aftermath, let the people know where they can get a hold of you.
Yeah, on Twitter, it's at Jimmy Korderas. On Instagram, it's at Real Jimmy Korderas because apparently someone else snuck my name out there. I don't know who that is. But, you could find us doing we're not on TV right now, but we're on the Sportsnet YouTube channel right now doing our Aftermath stuff digitally. with myself, Caroline Nugg, and the former Santino Marella, or Santina Marella, Anthony Corelli. And, you know, we're doing our weekly wins and fails and having some fun and, you know, talking all things WWE and doing trivia and stuff. And, of course, I do my weekday ref and rants, which you can check out and agree or disagree with, whatever you know, it's just, again, like I'm just giving my opinion. And, yeah, just trying to have fun and enjoy all pro wrestling.
No, absolutely. You mentioned the word fun. I had a fun time talking today, Jimmy. We really appreciate you taking the time out. On behalf of Jimmy Korderas, I'm Tyler, and I'll speak on behalf of Mike as well. We have been counted out. Cheers.